Dave, I'm a homeowner, and I'm looking at residing my house, and I'm wondering if the skin on the house has any implications in terms of structural integrity, or if I use like a concrete product like hardy board or stucco, is there a danger of that cracking and falling on people? Or
is it single story or double story?
Single story. It's got a sort of a soft story with a garage underneath it.
See, to me, that's a great opportunity. That is a great opportunity to really strengthen your house. To basically plywood the exterior, put in shear wall, there it says. That's a great opportunity. I mean, you're there already. It's a twofer for you. Two for the price of one, great. And hardy plank is a great product. It's a wonderful product. So, there are other competitors to Hardy now. Certainty makes it, and they're also good products, so cheaper. So shop them around. Yeah, hey, great. But do the structural work before you put the siding on. Not just the plywood, but also tying it together with metal.
Okay, follow-up question is, the house was built in '98, and can I be confident that because of the building codes at that point, that a lot of that work has already been done?
No, the codes changed in '93. 93, and a lot of cities didn't adopt it. Excuse me, it changed in '97, right? I'm trying to remember now. Anyway, a lot of cities, just because the code changes in a certain year, doesn't mean if your house was built the next year, you got the new code. Because like Berkeley was fighting about the codes for years. It took them 10 years to adopt the code because the plumbing and electrical combined into with the mechanical and the structural. So no, the answer is no. You have no assurance. You really need to take a look at the plans and see what code they were built according to.
Yeah, I think California. I'm thinking back now. The big change, at least in the seismic hazard side of things, was the '97 Uniform Building Code. But I believe actually California dilly-dallied and didn't adopt it until 2001, I think.
Okay, excuse me. What do you think about safe rooms? I've been hearing about those similar to tornado rooms. They can either be built in or precast, and they're brought in. What do you think about it?
Okay.
The question was about safe rooms, like tornado rooms, and...
No, you want a safe house, not just a safe room. I usually, when I'm walking through the house with people in my consultation, one of the things that I usually recommend to them is that if serious shaking starts in a big quake, that if they're in the kitchen or a bathroom, they almost always want to get out of there. But one thing, people get hurt in earthquakes, not only by things falling on them, but a lot of people get hurt just trying to go from one room to the other, or even worse, running outside. I read a story after the Napa quake, a guy, it happened at 3:20 or 4:20 in the morning. So pitch dark, the shaking starts, he's in bed, he jumps up out of bed thinking, I gotta get out of here. He's trying to run out of his bedroom to the front door. He doesn't know that a bookcase is falling over. He falls over, hurts himself, gets up, keeps on running to the front door, falls over something else, hurts himself again. If he had just stayed in bed, covered his head with a pillow, and waited for the shaking to get over, he would have been fine. But so that doesn't really answer your question, but rooms, that's why I like, when I do my consultations, I like to go room by room because every house is different. Some rooms are just great, they're very safe, and other rooms, you wouldn't want to be caught in them. I mean, there's hazards everywhere. So there's no easy answer, but there are safe places in every house. Under a table is the best usually.
If you want to build a room in your house that'll help you, build a meditation room. So when the earthquake happens, you're calm.
Next question's over here.
Hang on, I want to give these cards out in case anybody, before we wrap up, I don't know when that is, if anybody has a question for me.
We'll put them on the back table. We'll put these on the back table.
Could you talk about base isolation, whether it's possible or not for single-story family homes?
Yes, I mean, it's possible. It's just quite expensive. You know, I'm actually a huge fan of base isolation. I do a lot of base isolation of kind of critical non-structural systems for people with. Oh, sorry. Base isolation is basically decoupling your house from the ground. So, you know, when the ground starts shaking, in essence, your building wants to stay where it's at, and the ground wants to move. And so base isolation basically allows the ground to move backwards and forwards underneath your house. The building does start to respond as well, but you basically have base isolators, and it can move, you know, depending where you are and the system you're using. You know, the displacements can be quite large, which is what make it kind of expensive. You know, typically in Berkeley, when you're close to the Hayward Fault, you know, base isolation, you might need to be able to accommodate 30 inches of movement in any direction. So all your utilities, anything that crosses from the ground up to your house has to be able to accommodate all that movement. And then you have to have you're almost buying an extra floor for your house, because the floor and the isolators have to have their own structural systems, and so that's kind of what makes it a bit more expensive. But it's doable, and there's products out there that will work for residential isolation, but yeah, it's expensive. That's
Just plywood.
yeah. I mean, and yeah, it's doable. Anything's doable, but that's the one case where your building will basically almost no damage. Which is why, obviously, a lot of hospitals, you know, California, for some reason, I don't know why, but people don't believe in base isolation in California. Japan has thousands and thousands of base isolated buildings. California has like a couple hundred. But, you know, and it's mainly hospitals, emergency response centers, people that have expensive manufacturing facilities like biotechs.
Okay, next question.
Base isolators, going up there.
There seems to be a discussion on the panels. Okay, next question? More questions? Okay.
So the earthquake has happened, and it's finished, you've gotten up out of your bed. How do you know if your house is safe to stay there, to shelter in place? What do you look for?
Well, I'll throw in my, my comments is one, obviously if your house is slid off your foundation, probably not a good place to stay, which is why, the number one thing is you definitely want to have your house bolted to its foundation, because that's kind of a catastrophic failure that you can't really fix easily. If your house is still on the foundation, like the next thing would be to look for signs of basically, is my house no longer plumbed, right? So are the walls leaning over? At some point, if the walls are leaning too much and there's too much, basically what I'll call residual displacement, is like after the earthquake is over, how much did my building move and how much is it still out of plumb? If it's like less than an inch or something, probably not a big deal. That would be expected residual. Like I said, buildings move in earthquakes. It's expected that they're going to move, so a little bit of displacement afterwards is not a big deal. If your building is leaning, multiple inches, that would probably be something to be concerned about. The other thing would be obviously any kind of local failures, like if you had like a floor joist fall off a beam or something, that would be something to be concerned about. Oftentimes those local issues, you don't necessarily have to leave your house. You could just stay away from that portion of your house. Overall, it's just kind of looking at how much damage is to your house. Are there huge cracks? Small cracks are expected. If there's really huge cracks, that's something to be concerned about. And the other thing would be any kind of foundation settlement. That could be something you want to be aware of. Small displacement is not a big deal. If there's significant drops in your foundation, that would be something to be concerned about.
So, shifting gears just a little bit, you may just say, this is not, we don't know anything about this. We had somebody who wasn't able to be here this evening, who had a question specifically about schools and other large buildings. I don't know if there's anything that you guys can answer about her questions, but I'll throw them out there. She's interested in schools, she's very involved in the school system at USD. She's interested in finding out how larger buildings and schools are evaluated after an earthquake, and if there's any clear-cut guidance that she could give teams before going into destruction and rescue on those buildings, and then about how to, like, how long it would take to open them back up again, that kind of thing, and how bad does a quake have to be before triggering the involvement of the state architect's office?
Let's see. So there are documents out there for post-earthquake inspections. The Applied Technology Council, ATC 20, has it's a document for how you do post-earthquake inspections, and I believe it's the California Office of Emergency Services has a group of volunteer engineers who have signed up to do post-earthquake inspections, and so.
I'm a member of emergency service inspector in the state. Those are specifically for private homes because the state cannot handle
The state cannot handle that amount of people living on the streets or being in shelters. So the emergency service inspections are specifically for private homes. We were even called out for Louisiana and other places where they didn't have enough. We were told specifically when we went in for this training that schools, office buildings, everything else have a whole completely different set of inspections, and schools specifically come under the state architect, and they are always being inspected, and they have all kinds of different things. So to ask what the school needs to do, they should already have a whole program in place that's done by the city and by the state. I don't think that some outside inspector is actually going to come in unless somebody in the neighborhood just happens to be there. But that's not the purpose of the emergency service inspectors, at least as far as I've been led to believe.
I mean, the OES gets deputized by the local jurisdiction, and they can apply them for whatever they want. But like you said, hospitals and public schools come under the jurisdiction of the state. But oftentimes, even with hospitals, I mean, my company has agreements with some of the hospitals to do the inspections because there's just not going to be enough inspectors to go around. So I don't know what Berkeley Unified's inspection procedure is. I personally, there's another thing out there. This does not apply to schools. This applies to private corporations. But City of San Francisco and other cities around here have what they call building occupancy resumption programs, where you can basically pre-deputize a licensed engineer to come inspect a building after an earthquake, and that's a pre-agreement with the city to inspect a building after an earthquake and tag it so that you can get people back in their building as fast as possible. You know, these are done by corporations that have, you know, important business stuff where they want to be up and running as soon as possible. But yeah, I imagine the DSA is going to be completely overwhelmed after a major earthquake. They don't really have that many engineers. So
they may go away from another state, like other states have done.
yeah, or they
It's really
might.
devastating.
Yeah.
Your first rule is to go after your own neighborhood and your own family before you go running off to help someone else. So, yeah, like I said, we were going to Louisiana and other places, and certain volunteers went out there because they just didn't have enough people to go.
We'll take one last question before let these gentlemen go home to their families. Anything else?
If you're interested in this subject, this is a very good book, Peace of Mind in Earthquake Country. It's a little dated now, but it's a very good book. It's not a technical book on how to brace your house, but it's a book on how to evaluate the dangers of where you live and your structure. It's a very, very good book. Also, I want to add, I have 2 copies of it sitting on the table here, on the piano, that are for sale. So if you've taken one of those, please bring me $15 and bring me the book back. Maybe they're gone.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank
so
you.
I'd like to thank our panelists. So we have let's see, just a reminder, we're a 501c3 organization. We have meeting costs. If you wouldn't mind dropping $1 or $2 in the box on your way out, that would be great. Thank you very much. Take a chair away.